Hello. I was wondering if I should do a countdown to international famine. And yes, I'm serious. I have not listened to this video yet about it, but I do want to read something to you from somebody I follow on Instagram who's pretty knowledgeable about this. But let's listen to this guy and see what he has to say as well. So let me play it.
In today's video, I'm going to give you an update on the food shortage situation. I'm going to let you know how this is going to affect you here in America, so I hope this information helps you. Even if you're not a farmer, you know that different crops are harvested at different times, right? For example, you start planting winter wheat in the fall and then you harvest it in the spring. Spring wheat is planted in the spring and then starts to get harvested in the fall. With that being said, the bulk of this year's growing season will start to be harvested in the end of September. We're crossing our fingers and we're hoping for the best, but we're off to a bad start. So here's what we know so far. This information that I'm about to share with you is coming from the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA. They released their June global market analysis, so this is worldwide data. As of June, here's the current change in production of key crops this year compared to last year. So take a look at these charts. The first one is rice. Production is down 0.33% year over year. Wheat is down 0.72%. Barley is down 1.55%. Corn is down 2.49%. Oats, they're down 10.8%. Soybeans, they're down 12.3%. Now listen, some of these statistics, they don't sound too bad. So for example, the wheat production, that's down less than 1%, right? However, you have to keep in mind that with countries banning the export of many crops and the Russia-Ukraine war, supply chain problems and logistics, they've gone from bad to worse. Therefore, at this very moment, the world needs production to be up substantially to make up for all these challenges. And that is not the case. Production has not been increasing. Production has been falling. So this is not good. Now let me tell you about the situation worldwide, and then we're going to narrow down, we're going to drill down into America. But ultimately, this is going to affect you and me here in the States. The United Nations, they issued a warning. They said that the world faces catastrophe because of the upcoming global food shortage. The UN is predicting that multiple countries will declare famine in 2022, and then next year could be worse. The UN said harvests across the world will decrease as farmers struggle with high fertilizer and energy prices. First of all, let me save you the suspense. We're not going to have famine here in America because America is a massive food exporter. However, if you have crop yields much less worldwide, this is going to mean higher food prices here in America. Additionally, you have to think about this. If there's mass famine in North Africa and the Mideast, then guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a mass migration from those regions into Europe.
Yeah.
This is going to cause more problems for Europe.
And we
this
have an
could
open
deepen
border.
or prolong their recession. And then you probably already know what's going to happen next. Europe's problems are going to become America's problems. So we send
As
more
usual.
money over there, money that, frankly, we don't have. So we go deeper into debt, we print more money, and we have more inflation. So you already know that food prices, they have gone up a lot. I mean, you see this at the grocery store with your own eyes.
Yes.
So let me summarize for you how this happens, and then we're going to go over the current status. So over the past 2 years, food prices, they shot up because of the pandemic. So let me give you an example about what I'm talking about.
The pandemic.
So let's just say that you're a food manufacturer.
Christ.
So two things happened during the pandemic. So the first thing is that you had to downsize and you had to go through massive layoffs. The second thing is that you had to completely change your business model. So let's say that before the pandemic, you supplied restaurants. So during the lockdowns, you had to shift your business completely from supplying restaurants to supplying grocery stores. So we come out of the pandemic and then you have to change your business model again to go back to supplying restaurants. So this is going to cause chaos in the supply chains. So while all of this is happening, you're trying to rehire your workers during a labor shortage. So many don't come back or they switch industries, and it is a disaster. And then Russia invades Ukraine. This causes natural gas prices to spike and fertilizer prices to spike. So take a look at this chart over the past 5 years. Fertilizer prices, they've come down slightly in June, but they're so much higher compared to pre-pandemic levels. So I mentioned natural gas with Russia because natural gas, that is a very important component of fertilizer, the nitrogen portion. So fertilizer is made up of nitrogen, phosphate, and potash. So you mine phosphate and potash. You get the nitrogen by taking it from the air and converting it into ammonia and then refining it. So this process, it requires natural gas. So why do you think Russia makes so much nitrogen fertilizer? When it comes to oil prices, they were on the rise before Russia invaded Ukraine. But obviously that didn't help the situation. Additionally, the limited refining capabilities are keeping diesel prices elevated as well. Diesel fuel prices, they remain elevated as of June, so you can take a look at this chart. The line green, that is the price of diesel in 2022. The other lines are 2017 to 2021.
Wow.
This is a problem because diesel fuel powers the agricultural industry. Tractors that plant, fertilize, and harvest, they require diesel fuel. Shipping crops by ship or rail requires diesel. Transporting the crops from the distribution center to the grocery, that requires trucks that run on diesel.
I have one of these generators.
We stopped building oil refineries because we're going through a green tech midlife crisis. Refineries in the US, they are currently operating at 94% capacity. So you cannot go to 100% capacity. Otherwise, you're going to risk system failure and permanent damage. And that would just make the situation worse. And then compounding all these problems, multiple countries, they start banning the export of fertilizers and crops. And then you throw in the droughts, and this is how we ended up here with substantial food price inflation. Now let me show you this. The food price index, this is the international price of a basket of food commodities. So here's the monthly food price index from Y charts over the past 5 years. Food prices fell by 2% in June. However, they're still up 15% since the start of the year. And look how much it's up compared to last year, and also compared to pre-pandemic levels. For June, grains, sugar, and vegetable oil, they drove down overall prices. However, the cost of meats and dairy continued to go up, and they hit new record highs. Now let me tell you, who will be most affected by the upcoming food shortage? It's going to be poor countries, and it's going to be low-income people within all countries. So I'm going to read you a list of countries, and these countries and areas, they're the ones that face a severe risk of famine. The United Nations, they're calling these areas hunger hotspots that face catastrophic conditions. So here's the list. Afghanistan, Algeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, Sri Lanka, Sudan, and Tunisia. So the total combined population of these listed areas is over 600 million people.
Oh my God.
The UN is warning of global destabilization, starvation, and mass migration to an unprecedented scale. Now, it's very unlikely that low-income people in rich countries will starve to death. However, they're going to get hit hard with rising food prices, food price inflation. Food bank usage, it's already on the rise in the US. Grocery stores in America, they're reporting that customers are trading down by buying store brand and generic brands. The expensive meats and fish, they are steadily reporting lower sale volumes.
Which is going to give us an increase in disease.
So this is not just in America. This is occurring in wealthy countries all across the world. In Britain, the Office for National Statistics, they reported that 49% of British people, they bought less food than normal between June 22nd and July 3rd. A lot of people will ask the question, why can't we solve this food shortage situation? And why can't we stop the famine? So honestly, that's a very good question, because the world produces 2 times more calories than the world needs. However, you have to understand that hunger is a logistical problem. But a lot of people, they don't understand this. A lot of people will hear what I just said, and they'll just go in one ear and out the other. So people will hear that the world produces 2 times more than the world needs. So why are people starving? So let me explain this to you because, again, it's a very good question. So let's say that you want to feed starving people in Somalia. And you probably know it's hot over there. So you can't just warehouse the fruits, vegetables, and meats outside, exposed to that type of temperature. So you have to build cold storage facilities all over the place, and that is not cheap. Cold storage facilities don't build themselves. So do you know how much food rots as it waits to pass through customs clearance? From shipping to storage to delivery, insects and rodents, they're going to spoil the food. Do you know how inefficient it is to ship food when the road networks are bad, or if there are no road, if they're non-existent? So for all you international travelers, I'm sure that many of you have traveled down roads that are literally made up of rocks, and you're just praying to God that your tires don't pop. And how about the packaging of all this food? And that's very difficult when there's inventory shortages, there's supply shortages all across the supply chains, not to mention employee shortages. So it's very complicated. It's very expensive to get food from the farm to the grocery from point A to point B. It takes infrastructure. It takes investments. So let me summarize for you the key takeaways from today. The threat is that rising fuel and fertilizer prices, along with supply chain disruptions, they're going to result in lower crop yields in 2020.
Why is he not mentioning the banning of nitrogen fertilizers in the Netherlands and other places in Europe to quote unquote handle the Green New Deal, to get carbon emissions down?
2022 and 2023. Food prices, they've come down slightly. However, they're still up 15% for the year and substantially compared to pre-pandemic levels.
Right.
Countries in Africa and the Mideast, they're at the highest risk of experiencing famine. This would lead to mass migration to Europe. Low-income individuals in wealthier countries, they face more financial hardship from ongoing food price inflation. So we're going to see the bulk of harvest results in September, October, and November. Please subscribe and I'll keep you updated on the newest developments. Thank you for your time. I know it's valuable. I appreciate it so much. And please take care.
Why is he not talking about the nitrogen fertilizer issue and people closing up farms in the Netherlands, which is one of the biggest exporters, one of the biggest exporters in the world of food? Okay, so now I want to read to you a list of 33 things we know about the coming food shortages. Things are far worse than you are being told. Over the past few months, I've been carefully documenting facts that show that global food production is going to be way down in 2022. Unfortunately, most people out there don't seem to understand that the food isn't being grown in 2022. That the food that isn't being grown in 2022 won't be on our store shelves in 2023. We are potentially facing an absolutely unprecedented worldwide food crisis next year, but the vast majority of the population doesn't seem very alarmed about this. So I would encourage you to help me get this warning out by sharing this list with as many people as you possibly can. As you will see below, we now have so many data points that it is impossible to deny what is coming. The following is a list of 33 things we need to know about the food shortages. It is being projected that the rice harvest in California will be half what it would be in a normal year. The U.S. tomato harvest will come in at just 10.5 million tons in 2022. That is over 1 million tons lower than a normal year. This will be the worst U.S. corn harvest in at least a decade. Year-to-date shipments of carrots in the United States are down 45%. Year to date, shipments of sweet corn in the United States are down 20%. Year to date shipment of maybe sweet potatoes to the United States are down 13%. Thanks to the endless drought, the total number of cattle in Oregon is down 41%. Thanks to the endless drought, the total number of cattle in New Mexico is down 43%. Thanks to the endless drought, the total number of cattle in Texas is down 50%. One beef producer in Oklahoma is now predicting that ground beef could go up to $50 a pound. This is hard to read because there's screenshots and of Instagram, and there are images on there that are covering some of the information, which is stupid. Corn production for the entire EU could be down as much as 1/5 in 2022. We are being warned that there will be crop losses in France of up to 35%. It is being projected that crop losses in some areas of the UK could be as high as 50%. It is being reported that there will be losses of up to 15% in some parts of Germany. Some farmers in Italy have already lost up to 80% of their harvest. Agricultural production in Somalia will be down 80% this year. In Eastern Africa, the endless drought has already resulted in the deaths of at least 7 million animals. In China, they are facing the worst drought that they have ever experienced in recorded history. The prices of some fertilizers have tripled since 2021, while the prices of some other fertilizers have actually quadrupled. One payment company is reporting that the number of Americans using their app to take out short-term loans for groceries has risen by 95%. Demand at U.S. food banks is now even worse than it was during the height of the whatever stupid-ass thing they thrust upon us in 2022. I'm not even going to say it. The World Health Organization is telling us that millions of people in Africa are now potentially facing a very real possibility of starving to death. According to the World Food Program, 828 million people around the world to go hungry each night. Needless to say, that number soon will be higher. UN Secretary Antonio whatever publicly stated that he believes it is likely that there will be multiple famines in 2023. So I don't know about you, but I bought a box garden that I'm going to put on my enclosed screened porch in the south. I also have an indoor garden, GARDYN, that I will probably set up maybe December, January, depending on how things are looking. Get yourselves more storage for frozen food. I got myself a 7x7 freezer, cubic freezer, that is filled with meat from a Illinois farm. So this is very real. And it's all orchestrated. So all you people who are proud of this current administration and the current shenanigans of the globalists, I don't know what to tell you. I think you have diminished capacity to use your brain. Somehow, you've been lobotomized. Anybody still jumping around believing that what is happening is for the greater good needs to have their head checked. Seriously. If we had had a different administration, we wouldn't be experiencing this weird freaking war in Ukraine. We wouldn't be dealing with any of this nonsense. But all these people have been brainwashed to believe that this Green New Deal is going to save the planet. It's not. The planet was doing fine, except for the 1% parasitic population that is power hungry, trying to enslave everyone, restrict their movements in the name of climate change. Wake up, people. Stop being so dumb. It's really starting to hurt my brain.